for upcoming artists to blow in Nigeria.
Welcome to Plus Trending. I am Booking November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's tea time on PlusTvAfrica.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to.
Insecurity has overwhelmed Buhari's government, says former President Olusegun Obasanjo. The presidency attacks the People's Democratic Party governance over comments on the performance of President Muhammadu Buhari. This is Plus TV Politics, and I'm Kofi Bartels. He welcomed President Olusegun Obasanjo. Former President Olusegun Obasanjo has described the security challenges facing the country as a serious situation, calling for concerted efforts by stakeholders to stem the tide. Obasanjo, while reacting to the recent attacks on the Kaduna-Abuja train, where no fewer than 7 persons were confirmed dead, said the security challenge in the country has overwhelmed the Muhammadu Buhari administration. Also, Pan-Yoruba socio-political organization Afenifere has described the threat by Governor Nasir El-Rufai of Kaduna State to invite foreign mercenaries to fight local terrorism as an ominous sign for the country. Afenifere, in a statement by its National Publicity Secretary Jare Ajayi, said Governor El-Rufai's remarks call for serious interrogation and action on the part of all who should act. Now, joining us to discuss the situation is a security expert who'd like to say good evening and welcome to Shey Adetayo. Shey Adetayo, good evening. Thanks for your time.
Pleasure to be here.
All right. What are your thoughts on the description given by former President Olusegun Obasanjo that the Buhari administration is overwhelmed? Do you agree that they're overwhelmed with all the security breaches in recent time?
Well, one thing that you will always give to former President Obasanjo any day, any time, is that he is a prophet. And every time he speaks from angle of knowledge. And this is a man that has been military president. He has been a civilian president. And he has access to some level of, let me say, classified information, not necessarily passed to him, but because of the advantage of association, he's in the know. And he's a man that has intervened in security situations in many African countries. He is a man that who can easily interpret the weather to know if the cloud in the sky will eventually turn into a rain or it will just blow away. So any day, any time, I take his words seriously, and I expect that every responsible government should take his words seriously.
I remember very clearly, Shey Adetayo, that you were a guest on a program which I featured in. At the time, the attacks were going on, and you received that report and you shared it with me and with everybody who was following that program at that time. Are you surprised? Did you expect at the time you got that security report that it was going to be this bad?
Well, I knew, because for any organization or group to launch such an attack, it is with intention of maximum effect. And remember that similar attack took place October last year which actually didn't give them much result. So for a group to have taken its time for 6 months to plan another attack, then you should know that definitely it must yield a lot. More so, every attack on the train or on a rail system is usually devastating in terms of the effect on the psyche of the people and the material losses and also possible human losses, as we've seen in this particular case. And we know that the group that we are referring to here, their sole objective is banditry. And banditry here is about money. Let me quickly say this. I've seen people, criticizing media when they refer to them as bandits and say they are not terrorists. Most people don't understand the meaning of terrorism. Terrorists are people who use terrorism as a means of advancing their cause. And terrorism usually is not a means, it's not an end in itself. It's just a means to an end. So when you want to qualify a group, you qualify the group based on what their intent or intentions are, which is the end itself, not the means. Now, when you're talking about Boko Haram or ISWAP, they are insurgents because that is their own end. They want a territory for themselves, and they use terrorism as a means to achieving that. So they're a terrorist group, but they are insurgents. So when we talk about these people are bandits that are using the act of terrorism to achieve their aim of kidnapping people for ransom or plundering communities, attacking villages. All their intention or all what they want is money, is funds. So they are bandits, but they are terrorizing the people.
Now, how do we juxtapose that with a ruling of a federal high court sitting in Abuja earlier, late last year rather, prescribing these bandit groups as terrorists? Of course, this took some months, but it was officially gazetted by the federal government through the Office of the Attorney General. So are we now expected to call the bandits terrorists? How does that play out? Because you're saying that they're still bandits.
The issue here is that what the courts had adjudicated on is the action that they are carrying out. Because this is not a defined group. You see, it is easier for a court to say IPOB is a terrorist group because it is an association that is defined by objectives, and there are leadership, there are structure. You can easily define them as a group. So when you now classify such an organization, then anyone that associates with that organization can be said to be either be a member or aiding or abetting the advancement of such cause. Now, these guys are not structured. They don't go about under any name. They are just a bunch of criminals belonging to different camps and different groups that are operating under no known name, unlike JJS, that is Jamaatul Nasir Islami, whatever, that is the Boko Haram, and ISIS in the Islamic West African province. Those are groups that are defined by name and objectives. But these ones are a bunch of criminals.
But share data. I remember that the Abuja Division of Federal High Court did, in the ruling delivered by Milord, the Honorable Justice Taiwo, held that the activities of certain groups, they called he mentioned them specifically, or he wrote them down, Yan Bindiga and Yan Ta'ada. These are the groups that he mentioned with certain names as well. Does this not go against what you're saying?
There are certain groups at the initial stage that are operating, not that they are operating on that name, but they are classified based on maybe the name of the leader or what they choose to call themselves at that time. But we should not forget the fact that several groups had resurrected, several camps. We're talking about groups that were operating initially at Zamfara. Then we started seeing different camps within the forest of Kaduna, Katsina, Kebbi, Sokoto. Now we're talking about almost more than half of the forest of Niger State already occupied. And there are different groups under different leaders attacking Shiroro, attacking different parts of the state. So it's not that all those groups, unlike Boko Haram, that when you see them in Yobe, or you see them in Borno State, or in Adamawa, they are still Boko Haram.
All right.
But these ones are different.
Okay. I mean, we spoke to Senator, or former Senator Shehu Sani, who represented the good people of Kaduna Central in the National Assembly. He is no longer in the National Assembly, but I'm sure you're well aware that he's been vocal on Kaduna issues and the banditry. He says it's even gotten to the point where some of the communities that are under attack have to rely on terrorists, these terror groups, that's the major terror groups that you were talking about, to protect them from the bandits. Is that something that you find possible, could be possible?
Well, I don't really understand that explanation, but what I understand is that this group usually approach some of these communities and say, you pay us this royalty, you pay us these taxes, then you can go to your farm and farm. When it is time for harvest, you pay us certain amount of money, then you can go and do your harvesting. For every trucks or trailers that will be leaving the community on market day, going to social places, you are going to pay us. Then you enjoy our protection. That is the understanding that I have. Now, we should not forget the fact that the attacks in October, intelligence report, and this was also reported in several media platforms, that the Boko Haram group under the ISIS sponsored, were involved in the train attack in October. They actually funded it. They provided the money. They provided the bomb experts that trained the people who carried it out, and they provided the equipment that were used for rigging the rail with explosives in October. That is a known fact, and that does not exclude them from this particular one that happened, even though no group had come out to take responsibility for the attack. But we should understand the fact that our armed forces are doing a good job right now in the Northeast. These two groups are almost decimated. The remaining bunch of them that are still there, they're actually at each other's neck right now. The ISWAP guys are attacking the Boko Haram. The Boko Haram are attacking them, fighting for survival as we speak. And right from, I think, about early last year, towards the middle of last year, there have been several reports of this guy relocating from the Northeast into the Northwest, most importantly, into the Niger State forest. So I will not be surprised if after following this attack, they've been able to make substantial amounts of money to reestablish their caliphate within that region. Then we'll start hearing about ISWAP now in the Northwest.
All right. So you're saying that there is a possibility that these train attacks or rail attacks are not just itinerant banditry or bandit activity, that it could be coordinated, calculated terrorist activity. We're talking about terrorists on the scale of ISWAP and Boko Haram, simply because they have to have the skill to put together improvised explosive devices. Do you find that putting together these IEDs and is not something we see bandits having the skill to do, and that you probably be seeing this more with trained terrorists?
You see, I had the opportunity of being trained on IED, and I know how dangerous it is for you to put up an explosive. Many people have found themselves killed in the process, even professionals. Even in the days of General Sani Abacha, one of the military officers in the explosive ordnance group that was trying to make demonstration close to the CEC, he made a mistake and there was an explosion. So even when it is being handled by professional, by expert, there could be accident. It's not something that somebody can just, easily begin to toy with. That's why even at the beginning of the Boko Haram, they rely on experts coming from Somalia, experts coming from Sudan to come and train the insurgents in Nigeria on how to handle IED. Now, intelligence has established that there have been handshake between insurgents in the northeast and the bandits in the northwest. The handshake had been established. And we should not forget the Kankara student kidnap at that time, involving Shekau, where Shekau came on here to try to take responsibility for the kidnapping of those children. And it just kidnapping took place in Kankara in Katsina State. But the kidnapping was actually done by bandits. And Boko Haram, Shekau then tried to establish an agreement with them to transfer the ownership of those children to them under certain agreements and payment of certain sum, which eventually did not materialize because of the effort Katsina State and Zamfara State government put in place then to ensure that they were able to get those students back. Now, that was, the first clear, experience or clear situation, that established the fact that truly there have been handshakes. And we've heard of bandits sending their men to the northeast to be trained. But for the October incident, the intelligence was clear and it was public that Boko Haram sponsored that attack.
So we're seeing now from what you're saying, sort of a cooperation between these bandit groups and Boko Haram, who are under pressure and under the cush in the northeast due to the activities of the Nigerian armed forces. You talked about funding, and you talked about there being some intelligence to indicate that this the October attack was funded by or sponsored by Boko Haram. Is it that difficult, or how difficult is it for authorities in Nigeria to follow the money and to be able to decipher who is behind what and who is sending money to who?
Well, in this part of the world, we are still very far behind in terms of financial intelligence. Our banking system and operation, there are still a lot of gaps that criminals and fraudulent people are still exploiting even today. So you can imagine the Yahoo boys are still able to move their money around into cryptocurrencies and the rest. And yet the NFIU has not been able to intercept this movement of money. That shows the extent of loopholes still within our own financial system. Now, we're not talking about people that are used to the traditional system of movement of money. Before now, terrorists globally, one of the things that they do is to hide, how they move their money. And, one of the means that they use there is the Awada system. Though the Awada system is not, the Awala system is not as popular as before, but it's very, very much in use. The issue, the system of trade by barter are also still being used by those people where they can exchange cow with weapons. For weapons. They will rustle cow, give cows to those who need cows, who have the weapons, and they take weapons from them. These guys collect their money in cash. They don't use their money to buy motorcycles. They tell the families of the victims that you are not only paying us cash for ransom, we want a specific type of motorcycles, specific number to be brought along with the money. They will tell you they want a certain number of battery packs, they want certain number of torchlights, they want certain numbers of supplies. That it is they develop a way in which they get their supplies from the same people who are the relatives of the victims in their custody. And the cash that they have with them, they are using the traditional system to move this cash around. And one of the things that have been observed and have been raised around this, even I think I've also had Senator Shehu Soni also mention issues around this, is the fact that they do not believe that the owners of this money are actually in the forest with these guys. That if you've seen the way these guys are living, the people behind those guys, they are real leaders, or the people that are helping them to sustain this operation, they don't live inside that forest with them. And until we begin to start checking a whole lot of things. And these things will not happen under the current political arrangement that we're having. When I mean political arrangement, I don't mean democracy. I mean the areas where this problem is happening. The political structures in those areas will not allow military operations to be successful as much as we want it within the period that we want it to be.
How exactly do you mean? How exactly do you mean?
Good. One thing I can tell you that if President Olusegun Obasanjo is the president today, he will declare state of emergency. And the state of emergency that he's going to declare is going to suspend the political structure in those areas. Not that it's going to remove them, not that it's going to deny them their mandate, but it's going to suspend it and allow a structure as it is expected during an emergency rule situation that will enable arrest, prosecution, and the conviction that will be done within a week or two, where justice will be served immediately.
Yeah, but Sheikh Adeta, I posed this question to Sheikh Hussaini the last time we had him on air, and what he said was that the situation we had when Olusegun Obasanjo was president, when we had some riots and killings in Kanu and in Jos, reprisal attacks, a religious crisis between Christians and Muslims. And of course, there was a state of emergency declared. He said, oh, there were political undertones to that decision, but also that that particular crisis was different to what we have now. That what we have now, a state of emergency, will not necessarily make it easier for the authorities to track down the bandits or terrorists, as it were, because these guys are in the wild forest. You look at the large expanse of land in the northwest, you know, in Niger State, for instance, and in Kaduna State, where they are, that you don't need a state of emergency to go after these guys.
I do not agree with him in totality, and I'll give an example. There are times when, you know, just not long ago, the federal government suspended telecoms operations in some communities. It took a while before that decisions could go through, because issues around politics, fell into the midst of that decision. And at a point in time, we saw also pressure from some of the state governors that they want telecom operations to be restored. But we've forgotten the fact that the request was actually made by the military because they needed those things to be done for them to be able to carry out certain aspects of their operations. And it took a while. It took them a lot for them to be able to convince, the political structure that it is the best action to take. Under a proper emergency rule, that won't necessarily be the case. The military will have all the leverage and the latitude that they need to carry out every action as long as it's within the law and what is within the United Nations Charter to achieve their goals in any part of that geopolitical region that they need to liberate. Where they need to, black out telecoms is just a decision that they will take within minutes.
Yeah, Sheikh, before we go, because we're out of time, Governor Nasir El-Rufai last week said that intelligence was available and was made accessible to the authorities. From what we can see, the intelligence wasn't acted on. Intelligence indicating that there was going to be an attack on within a particular period, but that intelligence wasn't acted on. And he's also called, like you heard in the introduction, for the use of mercenaries in the Northwest. Very quickly, in one or two sentences, your take on that. Very quickly, please.
Okay, first one, the issue of the trade. If those states are under emergency rule, intelligence will not be available to NRC and advising NRC to suspend night operations, and NRC will go ahead and run a train in the night. Under an emergency rule, the military dictates the space, the security agency dictates the space. Every political structures, including the political appointees, must obey what they have said. Secondly, on the issue of Governor El-Rufai's call for mercenaries, he's the governor. He's beyond his power. It's beyond his position to bring mercenaries into the country. If mercenaries are going to be brought into the country, it's a decision that will be made at the federal level, and the only person who can authorize that with the understanding of National Assembly is the president. So if he feels that that is the solution, then he needs to meet with the National Security Advisor and also the head of the military, have a good conversation with them, and not the kind of mercenaries like the one that he settled, claimed to have settled, gave them money to prevent killing.
Shea Adeta, we have to go, but we have to go. I think you've answered that question. There's a lot to ask him. I hope we have you back soon so we can look at some other issues, including the use of drones and other technology to safeguard the rail track. Shea Adeta has been a guest. He's a security consultant, and we've been talking security in the nation. Shea, thanks for your time.
Pleasure. Thank you so much. My pleasure is mine.
Thanks for staying with us right here on Plus Politics. We'll take a short break, and when we return, the presidency has responded to the People's Democratic Party governors who described President Buhari's performance as poor. This is up for discussion when we return.
Is it for upcoming artists to blow in Nigeria.
Welcome to Plus Trending. I am Bookie November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's tea time on PlusTvAfrica.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to.
Nigeria's Niger Delta region, from where the black gold fuels Africa's largest economy, where the lines between wealth and poverty has never been thinner. Conflicts, poverty, insecurity, and environmental challenges daily confront the region. How can the Niger Delta story be changed for the better?
Join Mamude Akuga at 9 p.m. every Friday evening on Plus TV Africa as he probes deep in search of solutions.
Inside the Niger Delta with Mamude Akuga, the authentic voice of Nigeria's oil-rich region.
It is engagement we need to have.
Those who suffer miscarriages are never taken into account.
Members of the National Assembly are also influence peddlers.
You are sitting on Nigerians' money.
From the Babin, I pay my rent. On the Babin, I send my children to school.
A consultative engagement.
No any tangible notification before they ban us.
It's one thing for people to be at your back and the heat of the moment, and another thing for them to still be with you when push comes to shove.
I will do everything to take Lagos out of the national grid.
Welcome back. The presidency has slammed the governors of the People's Democratic Party over their comments on the performance of the Buhari-led government. The PDP Governors Forum had taken a swipe at the APC's performance, saying the APC-led federal government had meted out hardship on Nigerians. They also said the PDP was ready to take over and offer qualitative leadership. But reacting to the PDP's verdict, the presidency, in its response, said the main opposition party sought to cover up its alleged criminal failures and damaging period in office, as the APC put it, which Buhari's administration had to repair. Also, the National Publicity Secretary of the People's Democratic Party hailed former President Olusegun Obasanjo, Pastor Enoch Adeboye of the Redeemed Christian Church of God, for their statements over the insecurity in the country. Former President Olusegun Obasanjo had said the APC regime, as you heard us just talk about, had been overwhelmed by insecurity. Pastor Adeboye, on his part, said he wasn't sure if the 2023 general elections will take place, as he expressed shock over the bombing of a train or rail track in Jos. Now, joining us to talk about this is PDP's Deputy National Publicity Secretary, Ibrahim Abdullahi. Ms. Abdullahi, good evening to you. Thanks for your time.
Very much, my brother. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes, so just walk us through what exactly the People's Democratic Party's Governors Forum is saying about the Buhari-led federal government.
Well, the forum is talking about the unprecedented disappointment in administration that has come to characterize President Buhari's administration since 2015. No one would have agreed that a day will come in Nigeria where everyone will be living in fear and perpetual misery, like it has come to be the case. If you look at this country today, we have finally degenerated to that Probacean state of nature where life is nasty, brutish, solitary, and short. Maybe he had Nigeria in mind when Thomas Hobbes was talking about state of nature. Today, there seems to be no authority in place. Nobody is in check. Nobody has the understanding of even what power is about. Nigerians have come to accept every day as it comes, as a true situation of life, because they seem to have come to terms with the fact that nobody is in control. The center can no longer hold. The nation is in disarray. The security architecture has failed. The economy has crumbled. Virtually everything that makes life worthy of being called life is no longer in Nigeria. Nigerians have lost hope completely, and they are not even looking at it from the point of redemption. They have finally accepted that only divine miracle could save the country. But it is sad, it's unfortunate. We have come to find ourselves in a one chance bus. These people who came and assured us that they were going to provide the solution that Nigeria badly needed in 2015. Nigeria was the fastest growing economy, if you recall, in Africa, and the third fastest in the world as at 2015 when these people came. I find it difficult to come to terms with the adjectives that come to my mind if I come to describe them. But as far as one can foresee, they have themselves admitted from their action and inaction that they have not only failed, that they have disappointed Nigeria beyond leaps and bounds. And you could see the shame permeating all over, following them from nooks and crannies. So the Governors Forum came up with a communique where it's talking about the inflation, spreading inflation, which has combined with administrative incompetence to reduce even the quality of life of Nigerians. And it is sad, it is unfortunate. So what the forum is talking about is the reality that you and I are facing, and this doom that is staring us in the face every other day.
All right, you've talked about, the sorry state of the Nigerian economy. You've talked about, how the All Progressives Congress has led Nigeria sort of to the doldrums. But some would argue that this began when the PDP was in power. The current economic crisis, about if you take out COVID-19, you take out maybe some of the wrong policies or inefficiencies of this government, that the genesis of the financial crisis in Nigeria started when the PDP held sway as the ruling party in Nigeria. And we can go back to, the statements of Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala from 2014, Ms. Abdullahi, some of which I'm looking at right now. She came up with the belt-tightening statement, saying that there was a need to adopt belt-tightening policies to plug leakages and try to increase revenue, because of the drop in revenue and the drop in oil prices. So what do you say to this? That this current economic crisis with having in Nigeria, and especially with the recession, started before the PDP left?
I think the way to understand all of these things for a layman who is out there in the street is to break the economic situation of the country from a micro perspective. If you recall the price of petroleum, first kerosene, let's talk about kerosene, which is a requirement in virtually majority of the homes of Nigerians. Kerosene was selling at 180 naira as opposed to 450 that it is today. 12.1 kg of cylinder of gas was selling at 2,400 as of 2015. It is now 8,000 and 10,000 in some places. This bag of rice, and I must add, this is one area that these people have successfully, deceived Nigerians in the years from 2015 to now, that they are back in the farm, that they have produced in surplus. Yet, the price of this staple has skyrocketed beyond the reach of a common man. In fact, it has hit rooftops, and you cannot even begin to comprehend how people survive in this country. This same bag of rice, for example, sold at 8,000 in 2015. It is now 39,000 if you can find it. Electricity, which is a necessity in every home, was 14.23 per kilowatt in 2015. It is now 38, and in some places 40, and it's not even available. Unemployment rate was 11.4% in 2015, and today you can imagine what figure it is. You know the poverty rate was 11.3%, and now it is 42%. I mean, everything, inflation in the country in 2015 was just 4%. Today it is 15.5, almost 16%. So what exactly, what indices, what is the parameter for these people measuring their success?
Mr. Abdullahi, are you denying that Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala said in 2013, 2014 that Nigeria's economy was shaky and the Nigerians needed to brace themselves for hard times? I just want to go to a report by the Premium Times from 2000. This is from 2013. It's just a 3-minute read, but I won't read it all, waste your time, by Ogechi Ikea-Nyamu of the Premium Times, where it says, and I quote, on Monday, June 10, at the third round of the 2013 ministerial platform in Abuja, Coordinating Minister for the Economy and Minister of Finance Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala spoke glowingly about the Nigerian economy, saying the fundamentals were strong and that the economy was buoyant beyond danger. But a few hours later, on Tuesday, when all the doors were closed, the paper says, the minister sang a different tune. She told her colleagues in government, point blank, the Nigerian economy is shaky despite the official fundamentals and that drastic steps are needed to be taken to save it from collapse, is what she said. So what would you say to this? And then we move on to the year 2014, where she actually now said that there was a looming economic meltdown and Nigerians needed to adopt what she called belt tightening policies. So are you denying that all these things were said by Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala at the time, 2013, 2014?
I will respond by asking you a question. And that question is, are we better off today? If she said that, are you now saying that it's connected to the situation that we are truly in today?
I'm asking you, sir, and I won't allow you to turn the tables on me. I asked the question which you haven't answered. I know how it works. Are you denying, are you saying that these facts are not true?
She could have stated these fears in 2014 and earlier than that. Actually, to appreciate the need for government at that time to beef up and to sit up over the responsibility before it. But let me say very clearly, these people came with the assurances that they were going to fix the problems. They gave us...
All right, we see. Are you there, Mr. Abdullahi? Mr. Abdullahi, can you hear us, please? We seem to be having sort of network connection problems with our guest of the People's Democratic Party. We'll try and get back to him in a matter of seconds to see if we can get a clean connection. But I was just trying to get his thoughts. Of course, you're aware that the People's Democratic Party's Governors Forum have made some statements about the economy. And of course, the the performance of the APC-led federal government. Mr. Abdullah, are you there, please?
Yes, I am here if you are there as well.
Yes, sincere apologies. It was a network that played a fast one on us. So please continue with the point you were making. Are you there, sir? All right, if you can hear me, Mr. Abdullah, please, can you proceed with the point you're making? We can hear you from this side. All right. We're still having some network issues. We'll take a very short break, and when we come back, we hope to have Abdullah back on the line. Please stay with us. You're still watching Plus Politics.
This Medan has been directed to empower 1,000 persons with disabilities in each state in the next 12 months.
We now start hearing the shoot of guns.
Whatever I've done.
Every public policy has winners and losers, and some will not be very happy with you, while others, usually the silent majority, will be quite happy.
Welcome back. We still have the Deputy National Publicity Secretary of the People's Democratic Party with us on Plus Politics tonight. Ms. Abdullah, can you please hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, please.
We sincerely apologize. It happens from time to time, and we pray for better days as far as the network is concerned. Maybe that could be a campaign promise of the PDP to give us better data network. But please proceed with the point you were making.
Yes, I was trying to harp on these assurances that these people came up with. They went every corner, every nook, assuring Nigerians that they were the only ones with the capacity. And the person of Mr. President is the best thing after Jesus Christ that will happen to Nigeria. And all Nigeria needed to have all its problems fixed was to get that man in power. Today, even his own party faithfuls, like we have listened recently from Governor El-Rufai, Rotimi Amechi, and very many who have come sincerely to admit that there's failure in administration, that there is gross incapacity. But it didn't take us that long for us to know. The first 3 months, in fact, before he resumed office, we knew that they were foisting on Nigeria a person who is devoid of integrity, devoid of capacity, and one that lacks even the understanding of what contemporary democratic politics and global economy is about. A person who has held on to the Ministry of Petroleum in addition to his being the president, and petroleum went all-time high in the history of Nigeria. A person who claimed that he was a general in the military. I say claim because he has not been able to marry action, his words with action. A person who has come and multiplied the security problems and economic doldrums that he has taken Nigeria into. A person who has killed the dreams of Nigeria. A person who has brought inflation to all-time high. A person who seems not to even understand what, civility. Look at these people. When they are not stealing, robbing, and plundering the wealth of the nation, they go ahead blackmailing and using vendetta and blackmail against people who have brought Nigeria.
Are you there, sir? If you're watching, if you can hear me, Mr. Abdullah, I think it's not be fair to say these particular individuals from the Buhari administration that you pointed out actually said the government has failed. Because I listened to them. You mentioned Rotimi Amechi and another individual, I think it was El-Rufai. But they didn't necessarily say the federal government as a whole has failed. Are you there, sir? All right, we sincerely apologize for the network issues, but of course, we're still looking at the statement made about a fortnight ago by the People's Democratic Party and its governors forum regarding the security situation, or the economic situation rather, in the country, and indeed the security situation in the country as well. And they have said that the APC-led federal government has failed and is a failure and is not fit to contest the next election. However, of course, the federal government has also had its say in response to what the People's Democratic Governors, Democratic Party Governors Forum has been saying about their performance as far as leading Nigeria is concerned. And they've also said, the APC, the federal government, that you know, the PDP didn't do any better in its time in charge of the country. And of course, these are questions that I was hoping Mr. Abdullahi, the Deputy National Publicity Secretary of the People's Democratic Party, will be able to answer. Mr. Abdullahi, are you there?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. You said that the likes of Rotimi Amechi and co. have said that the federal government has failed, but I believe that that's not what they said. If we were to be fair to Amechi and other members of this administration, they didn't categorically come out to say that the federal government under Buhari has failed.
Well, they may not use my language directly, but the import of what they have said. And this will not be the first time Governor El-Rufai will be admitting that they are responsible for this high level of insecurity in the country. This will not be the first time. Even preceding the 2019 election, just a journey of 2 years between 2019 and 2015 to 2019, El-Rufai has admitted the gross incapacity of the person of the president. And it has been corroborated severally by the late Minister of Women Affairs, Aisha Ismail. It has also been affirmed by Governor Rotimi Amechi, now Minister of Transportation. These people themselves have come to accept that the worst thing Nigeria will have is that president of APC and the government of APC in place, because it has only succeeded in inflicting problems, pain, anguish, and penury on Nigerians, as opposed to coming, you know, to address their plight.
But Mr. Abdullahi, what the statement by Garba Shehu, mediator to the president, is released a statement saying that what the APC has been trying to do is to repair the damage caused by the People's Democratic Party in its 16 years of ruling Nigeria.
What will you expect from a Garba Shehu who speaks from both sides of his mouth? A Garba Shehu who has lost credibility the very minute he started.
Yeah, but can we stick to the issue he raised? Do you disagree that the PDP...
You brought his name here.
Yes. No, but he's saying, what he was saying, Mr. Abdullahi, if you would allow me, sir, to ask you the question, sir. What he was saying is that...
Look at the person, the messenger bringing the message, not the person, not the message that is brought.
No, I want us to dwell on his response, sir, please. He's saying, Mr. Abdullahi, can you hear me, please? Yes, Garba Shehu is saying that the APC is trying to repair the damage the PDP inflicted on Nigeria in the 16 years of ruling. He's talking about things like corruption. He's talking about things like insecurity, you know, and misrule. He's saying 16 years of damage, he calls it. So what's your response to that? Did the PDP inflict Nigeria with 16 years of damage, like Garba Shehu says?
I thought these problems in question are problems these people say they were going to fix within 6 months. Water insecurity.
So are you agreeing with him?
How could I imagine doing that? Garba Shehu statement is the same statement that APC has been telling Nigeria: lies, falsehood, fabrication, denial. People who have refused to accept that they are the worst government that humanity has seen. People who have deluded themselves into believing that they have the capacity, but they have seen every other passing hour that they are not only lacking the capacity, that even the credibility and sincerity that is expected of a leader is completely.
But he's saying that I want to read some of the statement, some part of the statement from the Garba Shehu. He says that, quote, we cannot forget, under the PDP, the nation had an army full of phantom soldiers whose pay went to PDP politicians' pockets, while our under-resourced real soldiers died in the fight against terrorist insurgents, and our international allies refused to supply kit and military aid. He says, it continues by saying, today, with the APC, the army is resourced. We have fighter jets from our partners. Boko Haram is being driven from every inch of the Nigerian territory, and ISWAP's leader is eliminated in a Nigerian airstrike. What are your thoughts on that? That the army was ill-equipped and the pay for soldiers was going to the pockets of politicians?
Let me ask you a question in responding. Since you came to this country and lived in this country, have you heard where the military will vacate its point of duty and run away, like we have seen between 2015 and 2019?
Well, I was born in this country, so I think I'll take my time back to Dan. But he's saying that it happened under your administration, and he's talked about, for instance, the equipping of the army, that they were ill-equipped, and we have the records to show that you had military protests and mutiny and all that.
I think the most important thing that should engage us is not what Garba Shehu, who has suddenly become the drum beater. I think we should be talking about the reality on ground. And you and I are faced by these realities increasingly day in, day out. If your street from where you are working now, from your office to your place of work, is as secured as it was in 2015, I leave it to you. If the airport, this is the first time, let me remind you, that a train would be bombed. And that was a statement of Obasanjo during the background. I heard you say something about that, which got the commendation of even the publicity of the party. This is the first time throughout my living on earth that a train will be bombed on the track.
But Obasanjo, you're calling, tore his PDP membership card because of the failures of your party at the time.
Could PDP be responsible for this high level of insecurity? That is the question I'm asking.
But will the PDP do any better?
I have not seen this thing in my entire life, not even in Nigeria, not even in Somalia.
Okay. All right. Mr. Abdullah, I'm afraid we have to call it a day. I want to thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and hope to have you soon again on Plus Politics. And that's so much you can take on the program tonight. Of course, we've had Ibrahim Abdullahi, the Deputy National Publicity Secretary of the People's Democratic Party. Thanks for staying with us. We'll round up today's show with Vice President Professor Yemi Osinbajo speaking on the attack on the Abuja-Kaduna train. And Kofi Bitel's Plus Politics returns with a very interesting edition tomorrow.
The federal government has condemned the Kaduna-Abuja train attack by terrorists, calling it barbaric. The Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, who cut short his earlier engagement in Lagos to visit the site of the attack, said the government was doing everything possible to end insurgency. In company of the Governor of Kaduna State, Nasir El-Rufai, the Vice President proceeded to see victims of the attack at 44 Army Reference Hospital and St. Gerald Hospital.
It is evident that there is no, it's not as if there's any real benefit, even for that. So we remain resolute in our commitment to ensuring that these sorts of things are prevented and that as quickly as possible services are restored and that the type of safety measures that are required are put in place. We've been round to see some of the victims of the very tragic incident, but and many of them, of course, are recovering very well. And we're very happy to see that the state government has taken on the responsibility of medical assistance to them and ensuring that they are comfortable and that they are well. And the federal government will support in every possible way to ensure that these people who just, innocent people just traveling from Kaduna to Abuja, just doing their regular business, are assaulted in a cowardly way in the dead of night, late at night. I think it's condemnable, and we must all condemn it and resolve to ensure that these sorts of things will not happen again.
The Chief of Defense Staff, Lieutenant General Lucky Irabo, and the Inspector General of Police, Usman Alkali, also visited the scene of the deadly attack.
This is dastardly acts, and I'd like to assure you that those behind it will not go unpunished. Currently, the men are on their chase, and they will certainly pay the price.
Meanwhile, the figure of those kidnapped is still sketchy, as family members of those on board the train besieged the station in a search.
It's a very tragic situation now.
I'm not the only one here. If you check around, you can see that there are a lot of people waiting for maybe they'll be able to get any relevant information concerning the incident. And up to now.
And so far, there is no information from the train manager.
They are not giving us any information. That is the issue. They are not talking to us. They are keeping all their this thing to themselves.
Increase the reach of your events or business services. To advertise on Plus TV Africa, please call 0906 000 5719 or 0909 040 8408 or send an email to marketing@PlusTvAfrica.com. Plus TV Africa. Big stories live here.
My name is Adegbenga Badijo. I am a chartered accountant. I choose to be part of the movement to change the narrative from the good old days to looking forward to a better tomorrow. I'm an Ijebu man from Ijebu-Igbo in Ogun State, born and bred in Ilesha, formerly in Western State, later Oyo State, but now Osun State. Though from a middle-class parentage and a humble background, I was born at the prestigious Wesley Guild Hospital Ilesha, with one of the best medical facilities in Nigeria and a retinue of well-trained doctors, nurses, and medical personnel to boot. So I knew this song as a toddler. Ìgbìmọ̀ mi rèjò fi ojú mi rò mí o. Ìgbìmọ̀ mi padà bọ̀ ọ̀rọ̀ mi mọ́ dayọ̀. Ọba rere mọ́jọ̀rọ̀ ẹkún bá mi. I grew up wanting to be a medical doctor. We lived at Kappa in Ilesha, the staff quarters of the Government Teacher Training College Ilesha, where my late dad was a teacher and a tent-making Methodist minister. Incidentally, I visited the compound a year ago, got to the house where we lived, and was taken aback by the level of infrastructural decay. The hitherto green, lush lawns are overgrown with weeds, with indiscriminate subsistence farming going all around the place. As a young man with a humble background, I missed nothing. In fact, when my late dad of blessed memory bought his first ladder saloon car at less than £3,000 with a car loan, I felt we had moved to the upper middle class. I never believed we didn't have what bourgeoisies had. There was no "my car is bigger than your own" mentality. To us, then, education was everything, and this still holds true today as the best inheritance and legacy that can be enduring. We can change the narrative by investing tremendously on rejuvenation of formal and citizens' education across board so that we can restore a value system that engenders transformational and healthy leadership traits for a better tomorrow. Our children deserve a brighter and a better tomorrow, not the good old days. I join Shemore in this collective drive towards a greater tomorrow. Thank you.